Let's begin with the most important part of drawing the face, the eyes. William Shakespeare once said, "The eyes are the windows to the soul," and this is never truer than when drawing or painting the face. If you can authentically capture the details and expression of the eyes in your drawing, you will be well on your way to creating a great portrait. First, let's explore the physical construction of the eye. The hole in the center of the eye is called the pupil and is located in the center of the colored part of the eye, called the iris. The pupil is always centered inside of the iris, and both should always be shaped like a circle, unless you're drawing the eye from an extreme angle, which we will look at later. Notice that in a relaxed face, you don't see some of the iris. Part of it is covered by the upper eyelid. The part we commonly refer to as the white of the eye is called the sclera. In the inner corner of the eye is a fold of tissue called the tear duct, located where the upper and lower eyelids meet. Take a close look at the lower lid line. This lid leans outward more than the upper lid, allowing us to see what is referred to as the water line. The lower lid's eyelashes grow below this line and are much shorter and thinner than the upper lashes. Unlike the lower lid, the upper lid leans down so that you cannot see the waterline or base of the eyelashes. Notice how much thicker and longer the upper eyelashes are. The upper eyelid is much deeper than the lower lid as well and forms a very visible crease. The eye is shaded from above by the ridge of the brow, while the nose rises up to the side of the eye. This means that the sphere of the eye is sunken into what we refer to as the eye socket and is surrounded by beautiful shadows. Knowing the form of the eye when drawing and shading can make your drawing more realistic, even when working from a poor quality image. The shape of the eye is generally almond shaped, and it's narrower in the inner corner where the tear duct is. It has a peak, which is closer to the inner corner by the tear duct. It kind of looks like a lemon that somebody sat on. So here we have a nice shape for our eye. You'll have an eyelid which rises slightly above the upper eyelid. We want to put in that line. Not very hard. We want to be able to erase all this. For the iris, remember that part of that iris is not going to be visible, so we are not completely drawing the circle, just partially. But if I was to complete the circle, you'll see here how part of the eye would be above the eyelid. If it's easier for you to draw the whole circle to make sure that it is a circle shape, go ahead and do that. To find the center of the iris, you can draw a vertical line straight up and down and a horizontal line straight across, and that will help you center your pupil. You don't want your pupil not to be centered. Remember, it can't be anywhere else except in the center of your eye unless you're looking at the eye on an angle. And then you can erase out those lines. You want to have a highlight somewhere in your eye. It's going to make it look more alive and realistic. More often than not, it starts in the pupil and continues over into the iris. Maybe you'll even have two. Don't forget to draw in the waterline if you see it in your image, just underneath the lower eyelid. When we're drawing and shading, I always like to start with the pupil because that is the darkest part of my eye. I'm using my standard drawing kit here. I'm using a woodless 9B pencil. Start by outlining my pupil and then darkening it in, making it as dark as I can make it. Nice and black. There we go. Avoiding that area where the highlight is. Because if you color in where the highlight is and then just try and erase it out, you're going to get a gray. You're never going to go back to white. That looks good. So now for the iris. For this eye, it's not going to be completely dark. We're going to do like a neutral blue or green or hazel eye, not really, really dark brown. So I'm going to switch to, let's go with a 2B. When you're doing the iris, you're going to use what I call a heartbeat monitor stroke, where you're going to go long, short, short, long, short, short, medium, long. And you're always going to go towards the pupil.
The first time you do this, it's gonna look funny until we blend it in. I'm remembering to avoid that little highlight area. If it helps you to spin your paper around so that you're always going towards the center, feel free to do that. You always want these to be aiming towards the center of the pupil. Oops, pardon me. Shift everything out of the way here. Spin some more. Okay, so that's my first pass. It's gonna look really odd until I blend it in. When you're blending in these lines, always blend towards the pupil. If I was blending this way across the lines, I'm gonna lose those lines and I wanna see them. And what we're trying to achieve here is that we have a highlight closer to the pupil. Once I've done that, I'm going to run around the outside, and here I can kind of blend it in so I lose the lines just a little bit. Now, if I was doing an extremely light blue eye, I could stop there, but because we want to darken it in a little bit, I'm going to keep going. I'm switching from a 2B to a 5B. And again, I'm going to do those heartbeat monitors, but I'm not going to go quite as close this time. I'm not going to spin the paper this time, since I already showed you how to do that. I know I'm going fast and it looks like I'm doing random motions, but I'm still doing that heartbeat monitor. Now before I blend in, this time I'm going to start darkening in my outside edge of the iris, because you'll have a darker ring on the outside edge of the iris. And right underneath of the eyelid, because the eyelid is sitting on top of the eyeball and it casts a shadow. Make sure you have that cast shadow. I'm going to put that cast shadow here and here as well. Again, I'm going to take my blending stump and run around that outside edge, smooth that in a little bit, and then go towards the pupil. Kind of lost my other highlight over there, but I'm not as worried about that. That highlight is pretty soft, so it's pretty good. I'm all right. I'm going to run over this cast shadow here into the tear duct area. I'm going to use my dirty blending stump to just shade in over here by the tear duct, and I'm just barely running over it here in the corner to shade the corner of the white of the eye, just like that. Now I'm going to pull that highlight out that I just lost using my electric eraser. And because this isn't very dark, I can pull that out. If I tried to do that here, see how it's real dingy? You'll never be able to get it back to white. So try and avoid having to pull out highlights in dark areas. Excellent. So we have the iris, we have the pupil, we have a nice white highlight. Let's put a little bit of darkness into our tear duct. Like so. And I'm going to use my 5B and I'm going to just brush over this line. I really don't want to emphasize the line. I want to emphasize a shadow. So I'm just barely holding my pencil. I'm just brushing over in both directions, above and below that line. And I'm doing tiny tornadoes. I'm going to pull down towards the eye and up towards where the eyebrow would be. Now I've lost that crease, that's fine. We're going to put it back in. I'm gonna lighten the value as it comes down here. Again, tiny tornadoes. And I'm gonna use that dirty blending stump from up here to shade in down here, right at the bottom of this water line. I'm gonna leave the water line lighter. Now, if I want this to be darker, I can add a little bit more value by creating a little pool off to the side of my drawing. Rub my blending stump in that and draw straight on with the blending stump. I use this technique all the time. I draw a lot with the dirty blending stump. See, already we're starting to see the eye sinking back just by emphasizing these shadows here. So now we're going to put that crease back in, switching back over to my 5B. In this picture, it's a nice dark crease. Putting the line back in. And brushing over it lightly. Notice how I switch the way I hold my blending stump. Sometimes I hold it like a pencil, sometimes I hold it on its edge. Now I want to bring this highlight back in just a little bit on the lid using a stick eraser. And you just gradually build up those shadows. Use the pencil, use the blending stump. Use the pencil, use the blending stump. Now I'm going to use my kneaded eraser to help shape this just a little bit. Switching to the lighter side of my blending stump just to smooth that edge back over. Excellent. All right, I need to have a little bit of a shadow here underneath where the water line starts. Don't forget to put shadows under and beside your eye, otherwise it's not going to look like it's sitting in an eye socket. Excellent. So the last thing you do, the absolute last thing that you do, is add eyelashes. Eyelashes are a pet peeve of mine because a lot of people, this is what they do when they draw an eye. Please don't do that. That's terrible. Eyelashes do not look like spider legs. What they do look like is curved checks, like a check, but it's curved. And not only that, but they're thicker at the base and thinner at the top. And they'll change direction. They'll go straight up at you, or they'll curve this way, or they'll curve this way. It just depends. When I'm doing eyelashes, I like to, for the upper eyelid, I follow the curve and then pull up and away. And similar to the heartbeat monitor, you want some of them to be long, some of them to be short. Right about here, the eyelashes are going to come straight up. So I'm gradually straightening to meet that straight up and down line there. And then start curving the other direction. The eyelashes generally stop about here on the upper eyelid. Don't do them all the way into the corner of the eye. They're not there. And then I go back and I thicken in the underside of the eyelashes, just the underside. Gradually getting them darker, like so. The under eyelashes, there are fewer of them and they're thinner, and remember they start at the waterline. So I'm switching from my 5B back to my 2B so that they're lighter. And I'm starting them at the waterline Trying not to do too many. Here they're going to be straight up at me, coming straight towards me, and they're going to curve a little bit more. Let's add some length and curve a few into that water line. Lengthening them just a little bit. Then I can switch back to my 5B and just highlight a few of them. Not all of these are going to be dark. Now in this picture of an eye, we see all of this detail because we're so close to it. If you're doing an eye and it's further away, you're not going to see all of this detail. There we have it. How to draw and shade an eye.